My name is Evie Tastsoglou. I am from Canada. Canada is one of the 7 countries that participate in the GBV-MIG project. I have here with me my colleague Nina Sahraoui from France, who is we're going to be splitting this presentation actually. The first member of our team is actually Dr. Jane Friedman, who I was just informed is flying from South Africa as we speak. So we had to do some last-minute adaptations here and adjustments to this presentation. So how do I move that? Yeah. So conceptualizing gender-based violence in migration. For our team, the gender and sex dimension was not simply a dimension that should be integrated, but at the very heart of our research. As our topic was about violence against women, migrants and refugees, we started by engaging in all kinds of discussions and conceptualizations of violence. And in a nutshell, we defined violence as gender-based, including sexual, as violence that is directed against someone on account of their perceived gender and intersectional identities. We defined violence as generic violence, which we came to understand as having gendered and intersectional consequences, affecting men, women, and intersex individuals in gender-specific ways, and affecting them differently based on their intersectional positions and identities. Next, we defined violence, we understood A and B as operating on the interpersonal, but also systemic levels, that is perpetrated by individuals, but also by legal and policy regimes, states, institutions, and discourses. And finally, we are still, I think, undecided on whether we should include structural and systemic violence in gender-based violence or simply recognize the systemic roots of gender-based violence. And we see the pros and cons in moving in either direction. In terms of our definition of women, because our topic was about violence against women in the context of migration, we defined women in non-essentialist terms as individuals with female gender identity and expression. Once we were clear through the discussions and a series of concept papers that we wrote, we did not, our methodological challenges consisted more in issues of collecting data, of implementation of our methodologies. And because we were faced, our data collection phase coincided with the social distancing rules as a result of the pandemic, which was a common problem for qualitative researchers. And I'm done. And in our case, the problem was exacerbated due to the sensitivity of our topic. The ethical dilemma had to do with putting any pressure under the circumstances, not just on women survivors, but also on overstretched service providers. And I'm going to give the floor to my colleague. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Evie. I'll try to be very, very brief. Just 2 sentences on the main challenges that we encountered. So, as Evie has explained, we started with this overall focus on women to acknowledge the fact that women are particularly affected by gender-based violence, and the fact also that this has been really under-researched in the migration context. So we have we wanted really to foreground an intersectional approach to gender-based violence in migration context, and we have actually just published a book under this very title. But of course, we need also to highlight very much that this methodological choice should not conceal the fact that men, boys, and non-binary persons also are exposed to intersectional gender-based violence along migration journeys and at arrival. So to make clear that this was only a methodological choice, and also the fact that even though we started with a non-essentialist definition of the category of women, including trans women, lesbian women, in the operationalization of our research, as a matter of fact, we also need to acknowledge that it might have resulted in some cases in a limited inclusion of lesbian and trans women, wherever possibilities for longer engagement, specifically with LGBTQI+ organizations, were limited. And then we also face, very last sentence, some ethical challenges that maybe I will then leave for the workshops for us to discuss. Thank you.